The void of space stretched before the UES Defiance like an endless obsidian canvas, punctuated by distant starlight that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Captain Michael Rodriguez sat in the command chair, his fingers tracing the worn edge of a family heirloom, a small navigation ship that had belonged to his grandmother, one of the first deep space explorers. The ship's bridge hummed with quiet efficiency. A multicultural crew of 32 specialists moved with the synchronized grace of professionals who had trained together for years. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data, each station a testament to humanity's technological prowess. Lieutenant Emma Thompson monitored the long-range sensors, her fingers dancing across translucent interfaces. To her left, Jackson Way handled tactical systems, his eyes constantly scanning potential threat vectors. Behind them, Dr. Aisha Patel reviewed astronomical data, her quantum positioning algorithms running complex predictive models. "Quantum fold disruption detected in Sector 7, announced Corporal Ryan Martinez, his voice cutting through the ambient bridge noise. "Something's incoming." Captain Rodriguez straightened, a subtle tension rippling through his muscular frame. He'd seen enough deep space anomalies to know when something felt different. Full sensor sweep. Maximum sensitivity. The ship's advanced computer system began collecting data, its quantum processors analyzing millions of potential scenarios per microsecond. Something was emerging from the fabric of space itself, not a standard hyperspace jump, but something more complex, more alien. A massive silhouette began to take shape on the primary viewing screen. It wasn't like any vessel humanity had encountered before. Biological and mechanical components seemed to merge seamlessly, creating an organism that was simultaneously a ship and a living entity. Iridescent membranes pulsed with what appeared to be internal energy systems, while crystalline structures that might have been weapons or communication arrays shifted and realigned constantly. "Biomass composition is unusual," Dr. Patel muttered, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of potential threat. "Those aren't standard technological configurations. It's like the ship is breathing." The bridge crew watched in collective silence. Years of military training and deep space exploration had prepared them for first contact scenarios, but nothing could truly prepare someone for the moment of actual encounter. Captain Rodriguez activated the ship-wide communication system. All stations, battle readiness level 2. Defensive protocols engaged, but no offensive actions unless directly threatened. Jackson Way's fingers hovered over the tactical controls. His mixed heritage, Chinese and Mexican, had given him a unique perspective on conflict. He understood that first contact was as much about communication as it was about potential defense. The alien vessel continued its emergence, revealing impossible geometries that seemed to challenge fundamental understanding of space and matter. Its surface rippled with what could only be described as bioluminescent patterns, communication, camouflage, or something entirely beyond human comprehension. "Energy signatures are off our standard measurement scales," Emma Thompson reported. Her linguistic training made her acutely aware that communication might be more complex than simple language translation. "Whatever this is, it's not just a ship. It's alive." Corporal Martinez adjusted his sensors, frowning. "Multiple life signs detected, but they don't match any known biological classification. It's like they exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously." Captain Rodriguez felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was why he had chosen a career in deep space exploration. Not for the safety of known territories, but for moments like these, when humanity would potentially redefine its understanding of the universe. "Maintain passive scanning," he ordered. "No active probes. We observe." The alien vessel completed its emergence, hanging in space like a living nightmare or an impossible dream. Its scale dwarfed the Defiance, yet it moved with a grace that suggested intelligence far beyond mere mechanical propulsion. Something was about to happen. The bridge crew could feel it in the charged atmosphere, in the subtle vibrations running through the ship's advanced hull. First contact was no longer a theoretical scenario taught in diplomatic training. It was happening. Right now. And humanity would face it exactly as it always had, with curiosity, preparedness, and an unbreakable spirit of exploration. Lieutenant Emma Thompson's fingers moved with surgical precision across the linguistic interface. Holographic symbols danced and shifted, representing a language that defied traditional communication models. The alien transmission was a complex tapestry of mathematical sequences, biological signal patterns, and quantum-entangled information streams that seemed to bypass conventional understanding. "This is beyond anything in our xenolinguistic databases," she muttered, her eyes reflecting the cascading holographic data. Years of training at the Global Communication Institute had prepared her for complex translations, but this was something entirely different. Captain Michael Rodriguez watched carefully. The main view screen flickered, revealing the alien representative in horrifying detail. Crixtar was not a singular being but a collective consciousness made manifest. A writhing mass of tentacles, crystalline appendages, and biomechanical interfaces that seemed to pulse with an intelligence both ancient and alien. Dr. Aisha Patel leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming any sense of potential threat. "The communication structure is fascinating," she whispered. "It's not just a language, it's a living mathematical construct." Corporal Ryan Martinez's tactical systems began registering unusual energy fluctuations. "Captain, the transmission is doing something weird to our computer systems. It's trying to read our entire technological infrastructure." The translation began to take shape, each word carefully constructed by the ship's advanced linguistic processors. "Humanity will be assimilated," the message read. "Your species represents an inefficient genetic template. Resistance is mathematically improbable." Jackson Wei's hand hovered near the tactical controls, muscles tense. His mixed heritage had given him a unique perspective on confrontation, a blend of strategic patience and decisive action. "They're not just communicating," Emma Thompson said, her voice a mix of professional detachment and growing excitement. "They're performing a comprehensive analysis of our entire technological and biological potential." The alien transmission continued, a relentless stream of data that seemed to dissect humanity's existence with cold, calculating precision. Images flashed across the view screen, civilizations reduced to mathematical footnotes, species absorbed into a collective consciousness that valued efficiency above all else. Captain Rodriguez felt a familiar surge of defiance. He'd heard variations of this ultimatum before, during diplomatic missions to the outer colonies and simulated first contact scenarios. But this was different. This was real. "Interesting choice of words," he said quietly, drawing the attention of his bridge crew. "Mathematically improbable." Dr. Patel caught his meaning immediately. In mathematics, improbable doesn't mean impossible. The alien vessel continued to pulse with its strange, living energy. Crixtar's form shifted and realigned, a constant motion that suggested multiple consciousnesses operating in perfect synchronization. Yet there was something else, a subtle hesitation, almost imperceptible. "They've never encountered true human unpredictability," Jackson Wei observed. His tactical analysis went beyond simple weapon systems. "Our greatest strength is our ability to adapt when the math says we shouldn't." Corporal Martinez's sensor systems began to detect subtle anomalies in the alien transmission. "Captain, they're not just communicating. They're probing, trying to understand our technological infrastructure." Emma Thompson's linguistic interface began to reveal deeper layers of the transmission. What initially seemed like a straightforward threat was actually a complex assessment. The Vornak were trying to categorize humanity, to understand whether humans represented a potential threat or merely another species to be absorbed. "They view complexity as a problem to be solved," Dr. Patel said. "But complexity is our strength. Randomness, creativity. These are variables they can't easily calculate." The bridge fell into a charged silence. Years of training, of preparation for first contact scenarios, had led to this moment. The alien vessel hung in space, a living testament to technological advancement that had conquered countless civilizations. But they hadn't conquered humanity. Captain Rodriguez allowed himself a slight smile. "Maintain communication protocols," he ordered, "but prepare for all potential scenarios." The human crew exchanged looks, a silent communication born of years of training, of shared experiences, of a fundamental understanding that transcended individual differences. They were more than a ship, more than a crew. They were humanity's first line of defense against a universe that believed it could be easily categorized and controlled. And they were ready. The holographic display expanded, transforming the bridge of the UES Defiance into a three-dimensional museum of galactic conquest. Krikstar's transmission revealed a chilling narrative, row upon row of assimilated civilizations, reduced to geometric patterns and biological data points. "Observe," the alien consciousness intoned, its voice a multi-layered resonance that seemed to vibrate through the ship's molecular structure. 12,643 species. Absorbed. Optimized. Perfected. Captain Michael Rodriguez studied the display with a clinical detachment that masked a deep, burning curiosity. Each civilization represented was more than just a data point. It was a story of potential, of dreams, of entire cultures compressed into mathematical representations. Dr. Aisha Patel's scientific mind raced. The presentation was more than a threat. It was a comprehensive breakdown of technological and biological evolution. Each civilization was color-coded, mapped against complex matrices of technological development, biological adaptation, and collective intelligence. "They're not just conquering," she whispered to Jackson Way. "They're conducting the most extensive sociological study in galactic history." Lieutenant Emma Thompson's linguistic systems worked overtime, parsing the nuanced communication. The Vornak didn't see themselves as conquerors. They viewed their process as evolutionary optimization, a grand algorithm of species improvement. Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the energy signatures of the holographic display. "Captain, these aren't just historical records. They're live data streams. Every species they've processed is still somehow connected." The display zoomed in on specific civilizations, crystalline species from double-binary star systems, gaseous intelligence from high-pressure planetary cores, silicon-based life forms from radiation-saturated worlds, each reduced to a perfect, sterile representation of their former complexity. Krikstar's form shifted, tentacles of crystalline matter realigning to emphasize each point of the presentation. Inefficiency is the greatest threat to universal progress. Individuality is a flaw to be corrected. Diversity is chaos that must be structured. Captain Rodriguez felt a familiar tension building. He'd encountered similar arguments before, during diplomatic missions, in academic debates, in the complex negotiations of deep space colonization. The argument of forced optimization was an old one, dressed in new technological clothing. "You believe uniformity is strength," he said, his voice calm and measured. "We see something different." The alien consciousness seemed to pause. For the first time, a hint of confusion entered its mathematical communication. Jackson Way analyzed the tactical implications. The Vornak's method of conquest was systematic, algorithmic. They approached each species as a problem to be solved, a variable to be optimized. But humanity had never been good at being a predictable variable. Dr. Patel noticed something fascinating in the data streams. "The civilizations they've absorbed," she muttered, "they all share a common characteristic: perfect efficiency. No internal conflict. No creative friction." Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic analysis revealed deeper layers. The Vornak's language was a perfect, structured system. But language, she knew, was more than just communication. It was a living, breathing entity that evolved through imperfection, through misunderstanding, through the beautiful chaos of cultural exchange. Corporal Martinez's tactical systems began mapping potential engagement scenarios. But these weren't standard military projections. They were probability matrices that accounted for human unpredictability, the variable that no advanced civilization had ever successfully calculated. The holographic display continued its relentless presentation. civilization after civilization, reduced to perfect geometric representations, each one a testament to the Vornak's ability to optimize, to remove what they considered unnecessary complexity. But they had never encountered humanity. "You see weakness in our diversity," Captain Rodriguez said, stepping forward. "We see strength." The alien consciousness seemed to hesitate. For the first time, a quantum of uncertainty entered its perfect mathematical model. Humanity was about to become an unprecedented variable in their grand equation of universal optimization, and they were ready to prove that chaos, creativity, and individual spirit were forces no algorithm could fully predict or control. The first volley came without warning. Crystalline energy weapons that could vaporize entire planetary defense systems lanced out from the Vornak vessel, expecting instant capitulation. Their attack patterns were mathematically perfect, predictive algorithms calculated to neutralize any potential resistance with surgical precision. But the UES Defiance was no ordinary ship. Adaptive nanoshields flickered to life, not just blocking the attack, but actively analyzing and developing a counter-frequency in real time. Where other species would have been reduced to cosmic dust, the human vessel absorbed, analyzed, and began to adapt. Lieutenant Jackson Way's tactical systems transformed the incoming attack into a learning opportunity. Their weapon signatures follow a quantum probability matrix, he called out, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. But predictability is just another form of weakness. Dr. Aisha Patel watched in scientific fascination as the ship's defensive systems did something unprecedented. The nanoshields weren't just blocking, they were learning. Each microscopic defensive unit was collecting data, understanding the alien weapon's fundamental structure, and preparing a response. Captain Michael Rodriguez observed the unfolding battle with a calm that belied the incredible technological ballet occurring around him. The bridge crew moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional military training, each member an integral part of a living, thinking system. The Vornak's initial assault was designed to be overwhelming. Weapon systems that had neutralized thousands of civilizations erupted against the Defiance. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecular structures. Gravitational weapons that could crush entire space stations, energy patterns that could dissolve most known materials. But humanity had always been good at surviving the impossible. Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the incoming attacks, his tactical overlay showing probabilities that seemed to dance and shift with impossible speed. "Their weapon systems are trying to predict our response," he reported, "but we're not following any predictable pattern." The ship's quantum computing systems began to do something the Vornak had never encountered. Instead of presenting a single defensive strategy, the Defiance generated multiple potential responses simultaneously. It was as if the ship itself was thinking, learning, evolving with each microsecond of the encounter. Emma Thompson's linguistic and communication systems detected something extraordinary happening in the battle's quantum communication layers. The Vornak weren't just attacking. They were attempting to understand, to categorize, to optimize. But humanity refused to be categorized. "They're trying to read our technological infrastructure," Dr. Patel observed. "But our systems are changing faster than they can analyze." The battle became a dance of impossible complexity. Weapon systems that should have destroyed the Defiance found themselves redirected, absorbed, transformed. The nanoshields began to do more than defend. They began to actively interfere with the Vornak's attack matrices. Jackson Way's tactical analysis revealed the true nature of their defense. "We're not just blocking," he said, a note of scientific excitement in his voice. "We're teaching them about unpredictability." Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a battle. It was a conversation, a demonstration of a fundamental truth about humanity, that our greatest strength lay not in perfect efficiency, but in our ability to adapt, to learn, to transform. The Vornak vessel's attacks began to slow. For the first time in their galactic history, they encountered a species that didn't just resist, a species that absorbed their attack and transformed it into something entirely unexpected. Holographic displays showed weapon signatures changing, redirecting, becoming something entirely new. The Defiance wasn't just defending. It was evolving in real time, turning the Vornak's perfect mathematical assault into a canvas of technological creativity. They can't understand us, Emma Thompson realized, because we don't understand ourselves completely. The battle continued, a quantum-level conversation between two fundamentally different concepts of existence. The Vornak represented perfect, predictable optimization. The Defiance represented something far more dangerous, the beautiful, terrifying potential of human unpredictability. The quantum processing cores of the ship began to spin up, drawing power from advanced capacitors that hummed with potential energy. Something extraordinary was happening, a technological phenomenon that defied the Vornak's fundamental understanding of intelligence and communication. Captain Michael Rodriguez watched as the ship's computational systems began to generate communication patterns that were simultaneously a weapon, a language, and a form of consciousness exploration. Where alien AIs were rigid and programmed, the human computational system was dynamic, learning with each microscopic interaction. "They're attempting to break our communication infrastructure," Dr. Aisha Patel reported, her voice a mix of scientific excitement and professional calm. "But they don't understand that for us. Infrastructure is a living, breathing concept." Lieutenant Emma Thompson's linguistic systems detected something unprecedented. The communication attack wasn't just a standard technological probe. It was a comprehensive attempt to understand, and subsequently control, the fundamental nature of human consciousness. Jackson Way's tactical display showed layers of complexity that previous encounters had never revealed. The Vornak weren't just trying to defeat the ship. They were attempting to understand the inexplicable variable that humanity represented. Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the incoming communication streams. They were more than data packets. They were quantum-entangled information constructs designed to penetrate and analyze the deepest levels of technological and biological systems. "They're trying to read our entire existential code," he muttered. "But we're not a system to be read. We're a process." The ship's defensive mechanisms began to do something entirely unexpected. Instead of simply blocking the incoming communication assault, they started to generate response patterns that were deliberately contradictory. Mathematical sequences that followed multiple, simultaneous logical paths. Communication streams that existed in quantum superposition. Dr. Patel noticed something extraordinary happening at the microscopic level. The ship's computational systems were creating what could only be described as technological noise, deliberate chaos that disrupted the Vornak's attempts at systematic analysis. "We're not just defending," she explained to Captain Rodriguez. "We're demonstrating the fundamental principle of human innovation, that true intelligence is about asking questions, not providing perfect answers." The communication assault became a multi-dimensional battle. The Vornak relied on perfect, predictive algorithms. The Defiance responded with creative unpredictability. Each attempt to categorize was met with a response that defied categorization. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic analysis revealed deeper layers of the encounter. The Vornak's communication was a perfect, structured system, but language, she knew, was more than just information transfer. It was a living, breathing entity that evolved through imperfection, through misunderstanding, through the beautiful chaos of cultural exchange. Jackson Way's tactical systems began to map something unprecedented. The ship was no longer just responding to the Vornak's communication assault. It was teaching. "Look," he said, pointing to the holographic display. "We're showing them something they've never encountered." The computational cores were generating communication patterns that were simultaneously a defense, an attack, and a form of education. Each response was designed to challenge the Vornak's fundamental understanding of intelligence, of communication, of existence itself. Corporal Martinez tracked the quantum information flows. "They're experiencing cognitive dissonance," he reported. "Their perfect systems can't process our intentional imperfection." Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a technological encounter. It was a philosophical challenge to the very concept of collective consciousness. The Vornak believed in perfect optimization, in the removal of individual variation. The Defiance was demonstrating that variation itself was a form of strength. Dr. Patel watched in scientific amazement as the ship's systems continued their impossible communication dance. "We're not just resisting," she said quietly. "We're expanding their understanding of what intelligence can be." The communication assault continued, but something fundamental was changing. The Vornak's perfect, structured communication was beginning to show signs of something they had never experienced. Uncertainty. Confusion. The first trembling hints of individual consciousness. Captain Michael Rodriguez activated the ship-wide communication channel. His voice carried a calm that belied the extraordinary moment unfolding around them. "We are not here to be conquered," he said, each word carefully chosen. "We are here to demonstrate that diversity, adaptability, and unity are our greatest weapons." The bridge of the UES Defiance transformed into a nexus of controlled chaos. Each crew member moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional military training, a living demonstration of human potential that the Vornak could never fully comprehend. Lieutenant Emma Thompson's linguistic systems began broadcasting a communication that was more than just a message. It was a comprehensive assault on the Vornak's fundamental understanding of collective consciousness. "Listen," she said quietly to Dr. Aisha Patel. "We're not just communicating. We're rewriting their entire conceptual framework." The ship unleashed a combination of technological and psychological warfare that the Vornak had never encountered. Quantum communication streams that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Computational patterns that deliberately challenged linear logic, information flows that were simultaneously a defense, an attack, and a form of philosophical education. Jackson Way's tactical systems mapped something unprecedented. The Defiance was turning the Vornak's own communication networks against them, exposing critical vulnerabilities in their supposedly impenetrable collective consciousness. "They believe in perfect optimization," Dr. Patel observed, her scientific mind racing. "But optimization requires the ability to recognize and adapt to new information, and that requires something they've systematically eliminated: individuality." Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the rapidly changing quantum information flows. The Vornak's communication systems were beginning to show signs of something they had never experienced: internal friction. Disagreement. The first trembling hints of independent thought. Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a battle. It was a comprehensive demonstration of humanity's fundamental strength, the ability to thrive through diversity, to find strength in difference, to transform challenge into opportunity. The ship's communication systems began to do something extraordinary. They weren't just defending or attacking. They were teaching. Each quantum pulse carried more than information. It carried a philosophical challenge to the very concept of collective consciousness. The Vornak believed in removing individual variation, in creating a perfect, optimized system. The Defiance was demonstrating that variation itself was a form of strength. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic analysis revealed deeper layers of the encounter. The Vornak's communication was a perfect, structured system. But language, she knew, was more than just information transfer. It was a living, breathing entity that evolved through imperfection, through misunderstanding, through the beautiful chaos of cultural exchange. "We're showing them something they've never encountered," Jackson Wei reported, watching the tactical displays. "The value of controlled chaos." The communication assault continued, but something fundamental was changing. The Vornak's perfect, structured communication network was beginning to fragment. Individual communication streams were starting to diverge, to question, to disagree. Dr. Patel watched in scientific amazement. "They're experiencing cognitive dissonance," she said quietly. "Their perfect systems can't process our intentional imperfection." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, broadcasting a message that would become legendary in the annals of first contact. Technological superiority means nothing without the ability to adapt, without the capacity for wonder, without understanding that the greatest strength comes from embracing difference, not eliminating it. The bridge crew worked in perfect synchronization. Jackson Way's tactical systems, Emma Thompson's linguistic analysis, Aisha Patel's scientific observations, Ryan Martinez's quantum tracking, each member bringing a unique perspective, a different approach, united by a common purpose. A living demonstration of human potential. The Vornak's communication systems began to show something unprecedented. Cracks, variations, the first signs of individual consciousness emerging within their collective. They had encountered humanity, and nothing would be the same again. The quantum communication assault began to reveal something unprecedented. The Vornak's supposedly impenetrable collective consciousness started to fracture in ways that defied their fundamental understanding of existence. Individual consciousness began to emerge, a concept entirely foreign to their previous existence. Microscopic communication streams started to diverge, to question, to develop independent thought patterns that had been systematically suppressed for millennia. Captain Michael Rodriguez watched the holographic displays with intense concentration. Dr. Aisha Patel stood beside him, her scientific mind racing to comprehend the extraordinary phenomenon unfolding before them. "We're witnessing something remarkable," she whispered. "The emergence of individual consciousness within a collective that believed individuality was a weakness." Lieutenant Emma Thompson's linguistic systems detected the first signs of internal communication breakdown. Where once the Vornak communicated with perfect, synchronized precision, now there were variations, hesitations, disagreements. Jackson Way's tactical display showed the progressive fragmentation of the alien vessel's communication networks. "They're experiencing something they've never encountered," he reported. Internal conflict. Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the quantum information flows, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Each divergent communication stream represented a mind awakening, a consciousness discovering its individual potential for the first time. The Defiance's communication systems continued their relentless assault, not as a weapon, but as a form of philosophical education. Each quantum pulse carried more than information. It carried a challenge to the very concept of collective consciousness. Some Vornak communication streams began to express fear, others curiosity. Some resisted the emerging individuality, attempting to force a return to perfect synchronization. But the process had begun, and it could not be stopped. Dr. Patel observed the phenomenon with scientific fascination. "They're experiencing what human societies have known for millennia," she said. "That true strength comes from diversity, not uniformity." Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a technological encounter. It was a fundamental challenge to the Vornak's entire understanding of existence, of consciousness, of what it meant to be a thinking entity. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic analysis revealed layers of complexity that grew with each passing moment. The communication was becoming a conversation, something the Vornak had never truly experienced before. "Listen," she said to her crewmates. "They're starting to ask questions." Jackson Way's tactical systems detected the first signs of internal conflict within the Vornak vessel. Communication streams that had once moved with perfect synchronization were now diverging, questioning, challenging each other. Corporal Martinez tracked the quantum information flows. "They're experiencing cognitive dissonance," he reported. "Their perfect systems can't process individual thought." The Defiance continued its extraordinary communication approach. Each quantum pulse was designed to challenge, to educate, to demonstrate the value of individual perspective. Where the Vornak saw inefficiency, humans saw potential. Where the Vornak sought perfect optimization, humans celebrated difference. Dr. Patel watched as entire communication networks began to fragment. "They're discovering something fundamental," she said quietly. "The power of choice." Some Vornak communication streams began to express emotions that had been systematically suppressed: wonder, fear, curiosity, hope. The first trembling experiences of individual consciousness. Captain Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This was more than a technological encounter. It was a philosophical revolution. "We're showing them the most dangerous thing in the universe," he said quietly. "The ability to choose." The bridge crew worked in perfect synchronization, each member bringing a unique perspective. Yet they were united by a common purpose, a living demonstration of the strength that comes from diversity. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic systems detected something extraordinary. The Vornak were beginning to communicate in a way they never had before, not as a perfect, synchronized collective, but as individual voices, each with its own perspective, its own potential. Jackson Way's tactical display showed the progressive breakdown of the Vornak's collective communication networks. "They're discovering something fundamental," he reported. "The value of individual thought." Corporal Martinez tracked the quantum information flows. Each divergent stream represented a mind awakening, a consciousness discovering its potential for the first time. The Defiance had done more than win a battle. It had started a revolution, and nothing would be the same again. The silence that followed was more profound than any weapon discharge. Captain Michael Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as the Vornak vessel hung in space, no longer a monolithic threat, but a living testament to the transformative power of individual consciousness. Krikstar, once the embodiment of the collective's perfect synchronization, now existed in a state of profound confusion. The being that had entered this encounter as a unified consciousness was now experiencing something entirely new: individual thought. "We offer a choice," Captain Rodriguez said, his voice calm and measured. "Peaceful communication or complete technological neutralization." Dr. Aisha Patel watched the quantum communication streams with scientific fascination. The Vornak's communication networks were no longer a perfect, synchronized system. They had become something else entirely, a chaotic, vibrant network of individual perspectives. Lieutenant Emma Thompson's linguistic systems detected layers of communication that defied previous understanding. Where once there had been perfect synchronization, now there were arguments, discussions, individual voices emerging from what had been a monolithic consciousness. Jackson Way's tactical display showed something unprecedented. The Vornak vessel was no longer operating as a single unified entity. Different sections, different communication streams were making independent decisions, experiencing independent thoughts. Corporal Ryan Martinez tracked the quantum information flows. "They're experiencing something fundamental," he reported. "The terror and excitement of individual choice." The choice presented was brutally simple: peaceful communication and the opportunity to understand a different way of existing, or complete technological neutralization that would erase their collective consciousness forever. Dr. Patil understood the deeper implications. This was more than a military encounter. This was a philosophical transformation. "They're discovering what human societies have known for millennia," she said quietly. "That true strength comes from diversity, not uniformity." Krikstar's communication began to fragment, individual streams of consciousness emerging like survivors from a collapsing structure. Some pleaded. Some threatened. Some began to understand. Captain Rodriguez watched carefully. This was the moment that would define not just this encounter, but potentially the future of galactic interaction. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic analysis revealed the profound nature of the communication. The Vornak were experiencing something they had never known: the ability to disagree, to question, to choose. "We wish to understand," came the hesitant communication. No longer a collective decree, but a collection of individual voices. Jackson Way's tactical systems began to power down defensive protocols. The battle was over. But something far more significant was just beginning. The UES Defiance had done more than win a military encounter. It had challenged an entire civilization's understanding of existence. Dr. Patel watched the quantum communication streams with scientific wonder. "They're discovering the most dangerous and beautiful thing in the universe," she said. "Individual potential." Corporal Martinez tracked the progressive transformation. The Vornak vessel was no longer a unified threat. It had become something else, a living demonstration of the power of individual consciousness. Captain Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This was more than first contact. This was a philosophical revolution. "Communication is a choice," he said quietly. not a mandate. The bridge crew exchanged looks, a silent communication born of years of training, of shared experiences, of a fundamental understanding that transcended individual differences. They were more than a ship, more than a crew. They were humanity's representatives in a moment that would reshape galactic understanding. Lieutenant Thompson's linguistic systems detected the first genuine attempts at mutual understanding. The Vornak were no longer trying to conquer. They were trying to comprehend. Jackson Way's tactical display showed the progressive breakdown of the collective's previous communication structures. Individual voices were emerging, asking questions, expressing wonder, experiencing fear and excitement. Krikstar's communication became something entirely new. No longer a unified voice of conquest, but a collection of individual perspectives trying to understand. "We wish to learn," came the communication. Not a threat, not a decree, but a request. The UES Defiance had done more than win a battle. It had started a revolution of consciousness, and nothing would be the same again.